New year, new debts to be paid.
I used to believe that love was loud, that it announced itself with intensity texts at midnight, hands pulling you closer, voices raised just enough to sound like passion instead of control. I believed that if someone wanted you badly enough, it meant you mattered. I didn't know then that desire can be a disguise. My name is Arden Howley, and the night everything changed began with a kiss that felt like a warning. The city was dressed in celebration. New Year's Eve turned everything brighter, louder, more forgiving. Streets glowed with reflected lights, music drifted through open doors, and people smiled at strangers as if hope were contagious. I was wearing a red dress that didn't belong to me. Not because it wasn't mine, but because I had never worn something so bold before. Leo had chosen it for me. He always chose things for me, restaurants, music, the way my hair should fall over my shoulder. "You look incredible," he said, watching me from across the room as I adjusted my heels. His eyes lingered the way they always did. Intense. Consuming. People mistook it for devotion. I used to too. The party was on the rooftop of a hotel overlooking the city. Warm lights hung above us like constellations. Champagne glasses clinked. Laughter spilled into the night. Everyone looked like they belonged to something important. Leo stood close, his hand resting at the small of my back as if anchoring me there. "This is our year," he said softly into my ear. "I can feel it," I smiled. "You always say that. And I'm always right." His confidence had once made me feel safe. Now it made my stomach tighten. As we moved through the crowd, people greeted him warmly. He had that kind of presence, magnetic, effortless. When he introduced me, his arm tightened just slightly. "This is Arden," he said. "She's special." He never said what I did, never said who I was. I let it slide. I always did. At midnight, the countdown began. 10, 9, 8. Leo turned to face me fully, his hands framing my waist. His eyes searched my face like he was memorizing it. 7, 6, 5. I suddenly felt like I was standing on the edge of something I couldn't see. 4, 3, 2, 1. Cheers erupted. Fireworks burst across the sky. Music swelled. Everyone kissed. Leo kissed me hard, possessively, like he needed to remind the world I was his. And for a moment, just a moment, I felt something cold beneath the warmth. When he pulled back, his smile was a fraction too slow. "You okay?" he asked. I nodded. "Just overwhelmed." He brushed my hair behind my ear. "I like you better when you don't overthink." That sentence stayed with me. Later that night, I went looking for the restroom and took a wrong turn down a quiet hallway. I didn't mean to eavesdrop. But I heard my name. "Arden's perfect," Leo was saying. "She trusts me completely." A pause. A voice I didn't recognize responded, low and amused. "That's what you said last time." Leo laughed. "This one's different." I pressed my hand against the wall, heart pounding. "How long until she figures it out?" the voice asked. "She won't," Leo replied. "I won't let her." Something inside me went cold. I stepped back before they could see me and walked quickly toward the exit. My breath shallow, my thoughts crashing into each other. What wouldn't he let me see? I didn't confront him that night. I didn't cry or scream or demand answers. I went home, sat on my bed and replayed every moment of our relationship with new eyes. The way he discouraged me from taking certain projects. The way he'd laughed when I talked about independence. The way he always framed his opinions as protection. I opened my laptop and searched his name. At first, nothing unusual. Then I refined the search, added dates. Old projects. People he used to work with. A name appeared again and again in archive forums and forgotten articles. Clara Vance. I clicked. She was brilliant, strategic, respected, and gone. Her social presence ended abruptly 2 years ago. Her last public appearance? A conference where Leo had been a keynote speaker. My chest tightened. I scrolled further. A comment buried deep in a thread caught my eye. She disappeared after getting too close to him. I shut the laptop. Suddenly, the room felt smaller. The next morning, Leo acted as if nothing had happened. He made coffee, kissed my forehead, talked about future plans like they were already written in stone. "You should come with me next week," he said. "There's an event. Important people." I studied his face. "What kind of people?" "The kind who decide things." I smiled faintly. "I'll think about it." He nodded, satisfied. "You always do." When he left, I locked the door and leaned against it, my heart racing. I didn't feel in danger. I felt studied, and that terrified me more. I spent the day researching quietly, carefully. Old articles, business connections, patterns. By evening, I knew this much. Leo didn't destroy women. He absorbed them, their ideas, their influence, their credibility, and when he was done, he moved on. I looked at my reflection in the mirror. The red dress hung over a chair like a warning. For the first time, I didn't feel afraid. I felt awake. I whispered to myself, "You won't see this coming." And for the first time since meeting him, I meant it. I didn't tell anyone. Not my friends, not my mother, not even the version of myself that still wanted to believe love could be fixed with a conversation. I kept my face soft, my voice light, my routine normal. Because the moment Leo sensed I was changing, he would change the rules. So I became the most dangerous thing in his world. Quiet. The next week unfolded like a test I hadn't agreed to take. Leo texted more than usual. Not romantic messages, check-ins disguised as affection. "Where are you?" "Did you eat?" "I miss you." Each one was a small tether. A reminder that he liked to feel my location in his hand. I replied with just enough warmth to keep him calm. The invitation he'd mentioned came on Tuesday. A sleek digital card with a minimalist logo and a private address. The event was a founder's reception, the kind of place where people smiled while deciding who deserved a future. Leo watched my face as I read it. "This is big," he said. "I want you with me." "Why?" I asked gently. He smiled. "Because you make me look stable." There it was. Not loved. Not admired. Useful. I kept my expression pleasant. "Okay." He kissed me like a reward. That night, after he fell asleep, I did what I promised myself. I started keeping receipts. A folder on my laptop, buried under boring names, utilities, taxes, old photos. Inside it, I created a new one, labeled simply 2026. Then I saved my first screenshot. Leo's message from earlier, the one where he demanded my location in a sentence disguised as care. I wasn't collecting proof for drama. I was collecting leverage for survival. On Friday evening, we arrived at the reception. A penthouse lounge, floor-to-ceiling windows, low golden lighting. Everyone looked expensive and unbothered. Men wore tailored suits, women wore silk and sharp smiles. Soft music played, but the real soundtrack was ambition. Leo's hand stayed at my waist, guiding, steering. He greeted people with effortless charisma, calling them by their first names as if he owned their respect. "This is Arden," he said repeatedly. "She's incredible." Still no job title. Still no identity beyond his frame. I smiled anyway. Then I saw her. Clara Vance. Not a ghost. Not a rumor. A real woman standing near the bar, hair pulled back, a black blazer over a white top, expression composed but guarded. She looked fine. Not broken. Not vanished. Alive. My heart slammed against my ribs. Leo noticed my pause. "What?" he murmured, close to my ear. "Nothing," I said quickly. But his eyes followed mine, and his posture tightened by a fraction. He knew exactly who I'd seen. Clara turned slightly, and our eyes met. Something flickered in her gaze, recognition, warning, something too fast to name. Then she looked away like she didn't know me. Leo's thumb pressed harder into my waist. "Let's get a drink," he said. I nodded, letting him move us away from her. My body stayed calm. My mind burned. If Clara was here, then the story I'd built in my head was incomplete, or worse, more complex. I waited for my moment. When Leo got pulled into a conversation with two men near the window, I drifted toward the bar as if I wanted champagne. Clara was there now, alone. I stood beside her without speaking, giving her the option to ignore me completely. She didn't. "You're Arden," she said quietly. "Yes." Clara's voice stayed neutral. "He brought you here on purpose." My throat tightened. "Why?" She glanced toward Leo without turning her head. "Because he likes to show off what he thinks he owns." I swallowed. "I thought you disappeared." Clara's mouth lifted slightly, humorless. "I almost did." My pulse raced. "What did he do to you?" Clara took a slow sip of her drink. "He didn't hit me. He didn't scream." That would have been too easy to explain. "He did something smarter." She looked at me directly. "He made me doubt my own perception." The words hit like cold water. Gaslighting. Controlled affection. Public framing. Isolation disguised as protection. It was the same thing he was doing to me. "Why are you still here?" I asked. Clara's gaze hardened. "Because I learned how to survive him." A pause. Then, softer. "And because women like us don't get warnings until it is too late." My chest tightened. "I heard him on New Year's Eve. He said I wouldn't figure it out." Clara exhaled. "He always says that." I leaned closer. "Tell me what he is." Clara's eyes stayed on mine. "He's a collector." "What does that mean?" "He collects women who shine," she said. "He attaches himself to their brilliance, then slowly makes them smaller until he can carry their light as his own." My stomach turned. "That sounds insane," I whispered. Clara's smile didn't reach her eyes. "That's the point. He wants you to think it sounds insane. He wants you to be too embarrassed to say it out loud." I felt my hands tremble slightly around my glass. Clara continued. "He'll start with tiny things. Suggestions, corrections, jokes that aren't jokes. He'll push you into relying on him for decisions, then call it love." My throat burned. "And then?" Clara's voice dropped. "Then he takes what he wanted." Before I could ask what that was, Leo appeared beside me, smiling too widely. "There you are," he said, his arm wrapped around my waist like a clamp. "I've been looking for you." His eyes flicked to Clara. "Clara, always a pleasure." Clara's face stayed calm. "Leo." The air between them tightened, invisible and sharp. Leo kissed my cheek. "Don't wander," he whispered, sweet enough to sound romantic, low enough to be a warning. Clara's gaze met mine again. One silent sentence passed between us. "Be careful." That night, Leo was quieter in the car. He didn't accuse me of anything. He didn't need to. He asked a question with a smile. "What did Clara say to you?" I kept my voice light. "Nothing important. Small talk," Leo hummed. "Clara likes drama." I nodded, acting uninterested. "She seems intense." Leo's hand moved to my knee, squeezing once. "Don't let other people poison what we have." Poison. Another word to make me feel guilty for listening? I rested my head against the seat. "I won't." At home, he kissed me slowly, deliberately, like he was reasserting ownership. My body reacted out of habit, but my mind stayed distant. After he fell asleep, I went to the bathroom and sat on the cold tile floor. Then I opened my notes app and typed everything Clara said, every phrase, every warning, and I made a list of Leo's patterns. Control disguised as care. Isolation disguised as protection. Public framing disguised as praise. My stomach tightened as I wrote the final line. He collects women who shine. 2 days later, Leo asked me to help him with something. A quick look at a presentation for an investor call. He framed it as intimacy, our little teamwork moment. He sat beside me, watching my face as I scrolled. The presentation was slick. Too slick. The language was familiar in a way that made my blood run cold. Because it sounded like me. Not my exact words, but my rhythm. My framing. My kind of clarity. He had been studying me. He had been absorbing me. I kept my expression neutral and made small edits tiny, harmless. Then I saved a copy for myself before sending it back. Receipt. Leo watched me press send. "You're amazing," he said, kissing my temple. "I don't know what I'd do without you." I smiled faintly. That was the most honest thing he'd ever said. By the end of the week, I understood the shape of my next move. I couldn't confront him. Not yet. I needed him confident. I needed him sloppy. And to do that, I had to give him exactly what he wanted. A woman who looked in love. So I went shopping with him. I laughed at his jokes. I posted one photo of us, nothing dramatic, just soft enough to look real. Leo liked it within seconds. His grip loosened. And in that loosened space, I planned. Because I didn't want to escape him. I wanted to reverse the power. I wanted him to realize too late that the woman he thought he was collecting had started collecting him. I didn't rush. That was the first thing I learned from Leo. Speed makes people sloppy, and sloppy makes them traceable. So I stayed gentle. I stayed affectionate. I stayed just believable enough that he stopped watching me like a risk and started watching me like a prize. And while he relaxed, I built the exit that looked like his idea. It started with a dinner. Leo loved dinners where the lighting made him look softer than he was. He chose the restaurant, of course, private booth, velvet seats, a view of the city like he owned it. Halfway through dessert, he leaned back and said, "I've been thinking about you." I smiled. Only now. His eyes narrowed, amused. "Don't be smart with me." There it was. The line he used when my personality started showing. He took my hand. "You've been different lately. More confident." I tilted my head. "Is that bad?" "No," he said quickly. "It's attractive." Then softer. "I want us to be more official." My pulse jumped, but I kept my face calm. "Official how?" "Move in," he said, like it was casual. "You're at my place all the time anyway. Let's stop pretending." Containment. Clara's warning echoed in my head. He'll call it love. I let my eyes widen like I was touched. That's a big step. Leo's smile warmed. "We're not kids, Arden." I lowered my gaze, acting shy. "I want that too. I just need to feel safe." He leaned in. "You are safe with me." I nodded slowly. "Then prove it." His brow lifted. "How?" I exhaled like it was difficult to say. "I want to join your world. I want to understand what you do." I hate feeling like I'm in the dark. Leo relaxed immediately. Transparency to him wasn't dangerous because he assumed he could control what I saw. "I can do that," he said. "You'll be at the next strategy meeting." Perfect. The meeting took place in a glass conference room at his office. Clean lines. Expensive chairs. People who smiled like they'd signed their souls away for equity. Leo introduced me as if I was an accessory he'd upgraded. "This is Arden," he said. "She's got instincts." Still no title. Still no identity. I smiled politely and took a seat. They discussed a new campaign, an initiative for a founder who wanted to rebrand after a scandal. Leo spoke with confidence, tossing out phrases he'd borrowed from me in our late-night conversations. Then he asked a question that made my blood cold. "How do we frame her as misunderstood, not guilty?" He said. "We need the audience to feel sorry before they feel curious." I realized he wasn't just collecting women. He was collecting narratives, washing them, reshaping them, selling them. And I was his favorite tool because I understood human emotion. I kept my face neutral, but my fingers tightened around my pen. When the meeting ended, Leo walked me to his office and closed the door behind us. "You did great," he said, pleased. "See? You belong here." I smiled softly. "I want to help more." His eyes lit up. "Yeah?" I nodded. "Let me draft the messaging for the rebrand. I know how to make people forgive." Leo didn't hesitate. He handed me the file. And just like that, he placed the knife in my hand. That night, I didn't write the messaging. I wrote two versions. One that was beautiful, convincing, airtight. And another that looked almost identical but with subtle fractures. Inconsistencies that wouldn't show immediately, but would surface under scrutiny. A phrase that contradicted a timeline. A claim that begged for proof. A sentence that sounded emotional instead of factual. Then I did the most important part. I saved both versions. Time-stamped. Labeled. Backed up. Receipt. Leo used the fractured version. Not because he was stupid, because he was arrogant. He assumed anything from me was gold. 2 days later, the founders' team loved it. They posted snippets. The narrative started spreading. And 3 days after that, someone noticed the contradiction. A journalist, a sharp one. The rebrand began to wobble. Leo called me immediately. "What happened?" he snapped. I softened my voice. "What do you mean?" "The article," he said. "They're picking apart the messaging. They think we lied." I inhaled slowly, acting surprised. "But you approved it." Silence. Then a calmer tone forced. "Can you fix it?" I nodded even though he couldn't see. Of course. I could have fixed it. Instead, I asked for something. "I need full access to the draft history and internal notes," I said. "Otherwise, I can't protect you." Protect you. The phrase he loved. Leo agreed within minutes. And with that, I had access to more than he realized: emails, revision chains, internal documents that showed his pattern across clients. He didn't know he just handed me the proof Clara had never been able to get. I met Clara the next day. Not at a bar. Not at a cafe. Somewhere neutral and bright public. Safe. She looked at me for a long moment and said, "You're not scared anymore." "I'm not," I replied. "I'm angry." Clara nodded slowly. "That's better." I slid my phone across the table and showed her the folder screenshots, drafts, timestamps. Her face tightened. "You got all this from him?" "Yes." Clara leaned back, exhaling. "He's going to come for you when he realizes." "I know," I said. "So I'm going to make sure he realizes in a room full of witnesses." Clara's eyes sharpened. "What do you mean?" "Leo's speaking at the Founders Gala next week," I said. "He's announcing the rebrand as his work." Clara's mouth lifted slightly. "Of course he is. I want him to say it," I continued. "On stage. With cameras. I want him to claim a narrative that I can prove he manipulates so the proof lands with impact." Clara stared at me, then nodded once. "That's dangerous." I smiled faintly. "So is he." The gala night arrived wearing velvet and gold. Leo looked perfect. He always did. He walked into the ballroom like he owned the air, greeting people like he was their future. I stayed on his arm, smiling, radiant. The woman he thought he'd collected. When he went on stage, the room quieted. Leo began speaking about redemption, about how the world punishes women too quickly, about the importance of reframing. He sounded compassionate. He sounded righteous. He sounded like a man laundering guilt for profit. Then he said the line I needed. "We built a narrative that turned hate into empathy," he announced. "We made the world see her differently." I watched the audience nod. I watched phones lift. And I watched Leo smile, confident he'd won. That was my moment. I stepped away from the table and walked toward the side corridor where staff moved quietly. I didn't run. I didn't panic. I simply did what I'd already prepared. I sent an email from a private account to 3 recipients, a journalist Clara trusted, the founder's legal counsel, and the event organizer's PR contact. Subject: proof of narrative manipulation and authorship records. Inside the folder, no rant, no emotion, just files. Draft histories, internal emails, timestamps. A clear trail showing Leo's pattern, how he collected women's work, reshaped truth, and sold it as redemption. Then I returned to my seat before Leo finished speaking. He glanced at me from the stage, proud. I smiled back. The shift happened quietly at first. A whisper near the back. A phone vibrating too often. A staff member stepping toward the organizer with a tense face. Leo finished his speech to applause. But the applause was thinner than he expected. After the speech, a man approached him with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Then another. Then another. The circle around Leo tightened, not in admiration, in evaluation. Leo's gaze searched for mine. I stood, still smiling, and excused myself as if going to the restroom. He followed. In the hallway, away from cameras but not away from consequences, he grabbed my wrist. "What did you do?" he hissed. I met his eyes calmly. I became visible. His grip tightened. You're trying to ruin me. No, I said softly. I'm revealing you. His eyes flashed. You're nothing without me. I smiled, almost pitying. That's what you needed me to believe. For a second, the mask dropped completely. Rage, fear, calculation spinning too fast. Then he tried charm again. Arden, listen. We can fix this. You and me. I stepped back, freeing my wrist. There is no we. There never was. He stared at me like he couldn't compute it. Because collectors don't expect the collection to walk away. The fallout wasn't a headline that night. It was a slow death. The founders' team cut ties. The journalist asked questions. The organizers' PR team distanced themselves. Invitations stopped arriving. People stopped smiling at Leo like he was inevitable. And I didn't have to scream to make it happen. I just had to show receipts. A week later, I met Clara again. She looked lighter, like she'd finally exhaled after years of holding her breath. You did it, she said. We did, I replied. Clara smiled softly. So what now? I thought about Leo's hand at my waist, his voice in my ear, his insistence that love was possession. Then I looked out at the city, bright and indifferent. Now, I said, I stopped letting men name what I am. I stood, shoulders back, and felt something settle inside me. Not happiness. Power. Because the night I became dangerous wasn't the night I fought. It was the night I stopped being collectible.